Hello and welcome to Lakeland Community College. My name is Mary Urbis. I'm the Gallery Director and Exhibition Curator for the From Woman 17 exhibition. Lakeland Community College is located in Kirtland, Ohio, just off the I-90 and 306 interchange. We are open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sundays we're closed. You can also visit the website, which is lakelandcc.edu/gallery. We also have 2 pages on Facebook and on Instagram. So enough for the commercials. I'm going to be taking you through the show. I'm going to be sharing some insights from the artists. I always recommend that you try and come see the show in person, and there will be a binder of all the artist statements on the counter in the gallery for you to investigate further. So thank you very much for joining me today. Okay, we're going to start the video walkthrough with the work of Bonnie Dolan. Bonnie Dolan has shown with us before, and she's returned after a few years. She is a CIA graduate. Her work, she said, was inspired by a book of Dale Chihuly and all of his organic glass forms and of her visits to Florida in the past. She has a studio in the Twist building, which is where a bunch of the artists from the Artcraft building relocated. So the first piece was Little Town Square, which is oil on canvas, as are all the pieces in the collection. The second is Water Garden with Cactus. The third is Waterfall. And then the last piece, which has this beautiful electric fauna called Jungle Music. Okay, this next piece is a new artist to the collection, Crystal Miller. Crystal just received her BFA from the Cleveland Institute of Art. She was named an emerging artist to watch in the Canvas magazine, which was put out by the Cleveland Jewish News. She was also on the cover of Can Journal and had an article written about her and her work in fall of 2023. I met Crystal at Maria Neal Gallery in Waterloo a few months ago, and I asked her to be part of the Woman Show because I love the colors, I love the symbolism, because she calls her work Afrofuturist portraits of glamorous women, and she loves sparkly, shimmering materials, which she feels elevates her work, which creates fiscal wealth and upgrades cheap materials and into works of art. And she believes in female empowerment. And in Afrofuturism, African traditions and fantasy have come together to revive a black ancestry erased by slavery. And so this is mixed media. She's got the tulle and the little swirlies of color, but then again, look at those beautiful shadows that the piece is casting on the wall. If you've been paying attention to my talks that I've been giving, you know how much I enjoy the shadows. Oh, I'm sorry, and the name of the piece is called She's That Girl. Okay, so the last piece in the collection of Bonnie Dolan's work is called Jungle Riot, and again, it is oil on canvas. So the next grouping of work is from Beth Nilgis Nahampkin. She's also a CIA graduate. She works in oil and acrylic on canvas. She believes that nature is a fundamental source of inspiration. From nature comes spirituality and an inner emotional vision. She is inspired by creating art, reading poetry, and spiritual readings. She was our poster girl in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. The show was up for 2 weeks and then closed, so I'm glad to bring her back so people could have more time to look at her beautiful pieces, which obviously have a little bit of a Aboriginal kind of art technique to it. So the first piece on the left is called Love Save, and this is acrylic oil on canvas. The taller piece is a quote from Rumi: "Go for fire and find what burns inside the sunrise." Again, acrylic oil on canvas. Then we have the third piece, which is called You Are Love. And what she did this time, and I'm seeing a lot of artists now, where she actually mounted her canvas onto a black board to give it a more dramatic presence to it, and then she painted the sides. So the the black is not painted on the wall, it's actually a board to which the canvas itself has been painted onto. And then the last piece in this collection, and I put this piece because it was thematic about the growth and the flowers. This is Columbus artist Lanie Bachman. She's inspired by mythical stories in the natural world. It's a totally different color palette, but I felt that thematically it worked with the growth and the organic shapes that were here. And Lanie's been doing, showing her work all over the country. She's been featured in different magazines, so congratulations on all her success. And again, some of these pieces you really need to come into the gallery to see them in person. Okay, this next piece is Oil on Canvas by Judy Takis. Judy is a CIA graduate. If you've been following her work, you know that she's been working on her Goddess project for a few years. This is called Burden of Thalia, the Muse of Cheerfulness, and it was from her Goddess project series and from the Warrior series. And for those of you that are familiar with the Artist Archive, you will recognize the model here. This is Megan, and Megan recently left the archives to further her studies in art history and on art curating at Case Western Reserve. Okay, this next grouping of work was created by Teresa Yondo. Actually, Teresa got her first degree here at Lakeland Community College. She also taught here at Clay upstairs on the 4th floor, and she holds an MFA from Kent State. This piece is called Rising and Falling. It's part of the installation pieces that she's really enjoying doing. And she wants the viewer to realize what is not there, the movement of the orbs as they rise and fall, touching the shelf to rise again. And what's great about this piece and the lighting is that these different layers of shadows from the different lights hitting it just gives it a whole different dimension. And then you've got the tension of the piece, the little orb on the edge of the picture plane, and then it goes off into the wall. Okay, these next 3 pieces were also wood-fired and glazed. The one piece in the back is called Vessel Number 1, and it is wood-fired with ash accumulation. And the 2 in front is Vessel 2 and Vessel 3, which are, again, wood-fired and glazed. And I asked her about the difference between a vessel and a vase. And vessel, she felt was more of a sculptural piece, and a vase is something you put flowers in, and the surfaces are just beautiful. And the piece that is in the back there, Vessel Number 1, was actually fired in a mystery kiln that nobody will indulge me and give out the name of the artist and the location. And I'm just kind of teasing everybody about this. It's become like a private joke with some people, but anyhow, the surfaces are beautiful, and again, this is that's one of the kind of pieces you need to come in and see it for yourself to enjoy the colorations. Okay, this next grouping of work was created by Patty Flauto. She's new this year to the collection. She did show in my Big Ass Art Show this past July. So I wanted to give her an opportunity to come in and bring in some of her, what I consider larger works. So these are pieces that are acrylic charcoal on canvas, and the first one is called Unabridged. She believes she's all about color and design and translating fundamental components of shape, line, contrast, and scale into an abstract painting. It moves her to see things differently. And the piece Way Out, which is the piece in the center here, these are actually pre-cut shapes that she wrapped the canvas around and layered them. So this is, it's kind of a shape-shifting direction where she's using the shaped canvases. And what's fun for me is not only is she has these unusual shapes, but then the shadows that they're casting on the wall kind of, I think, complements the piece itself. It's one of those Bob Ross happy accidents, which I thoroughly enjoy. And then the third piece in this part of the collection is After Midnight, again, acrylic charcoal on canvas. Okay, so I kind of put this grouping together of Teresa Yondo's work you just saw and the piece of Flauto, partially because of the round and the orbs. And so the pieces on the pedestals, on the wrought iron are just entitled Orb 1, 2, and 3, and they're wood-fired and wood and salt-fired. And it complements the circular format of this piece of Patti Flautos called Contradiction. And so when I design the layout of the show, I pull things together that have thematic colors or the subject matter, and sometimes it could be a color that goes from one piece to another. So there is a reason why pieces are placed next to each other, and for me it's also fun to integrate sculptural pieces with the fine art pieces on the wall. Okay, this next grouping of work was created by Tracy Parsons. Tracy is also a new artist to the collection. And she believes that mixed media allows her to be a child again. She loves the fact that feeling the paint on the brush or the squish of the clay or the smell of the glue. She believes or created this collection where she explored women's relationships with themselves and others. She's newly retired, so she's able to do more of the work. And again, this is new work for her. She also does these very illustrative watercolor and water media paintings. So the first piece is entitled Always on the Edge, and so it's got a textured canvas, and then she did the figure, which is mounted on the top edge of the piece. And then the next one is called Apartment Number 23, and with the cutouts, and you've got the two people conversing in the window, and then the sculptural piece up on the top. And I love the fact that she's doing three-dimensional pieces integrated with her 2D paintings. Then we have this piece, which is called The Red Bag, which is pretty self-explanatory, but just recycling the wood and creating surfaces that are not pretty. They're a little bit kind of gritty. And then it kind of leads into this piece by Gail Trunick, which is called Remnant. And for those of you are familiar with Gail's work, she has a studio in Berg Hill, Ohio. She's an open studio event twice a year. Go if you can. She converted a caboose, a train caboose, into a studio space showroom. She has an outbuilding with her studio, and then she has a little movie theater. She's got a garden. Her house was a stop on the Underground Railroad, and she's seen ghostly presences there before, but she's a wonderful woman, but her pieces and sculpture are incredible. But so she talks about how she likes to use gritty, grog-filled clay because it lends itself to rough gestural expressions. You can't smooth it out or soften the edges. She loves creating textural statements, and she believes that they're filled with pronouncements of life's lessons. And she likes to use discarded objects, which she adds to the narrative. And so again, I love the fact that she uses, in her assemblages, she creates the clay sculpture and she incorporates the found objects, so she's in control of everything that you're seeing. And then the final piece in the round frame is a piece by Tracy Parsons, again, which is mixed media, and that is entitled Fallen. Okay, this next grouping was created by Tricia Common. You should be familiar with Tricia Common's work. She has been an artist in this area for decades. She has a studio down in Murray Hill School. She retired from the Common Art Shops, which were the businesses whenever you'd go to the amusement parks and had your caricatures done or your sketches. That was her business, and so she has been supporting artists for decades. And this past year, she received a governor's award, and I was honored to be interviewed and speak on my nomination to Tricia. And we went to Columbus and had a dinner, and they showed the video. So congratulations on everything that she's been doing. She also has a show right now at the Mentor Civic Center, which is a retrospective. It's got her first painting from, I think, when she was 14, to some of her more recent pieces. So she does prefer to paint from life, whether it's in studio or plein air. She's responding to that experience, and that's what you're seeing in the paintings. So the first piece was Casey Marie, and it's actually pastel on paper under glass. And then the next is Sleeping Beauty, which is oil on canvas. And Tricia does an incredible job of dealing with flesh tones and then also white fabrics. And then the third piece is Dinah in Black Stockings, which again is also oil on canvas. Okay, this next quilt was created by Susan Shy. It's entitled Use the Skillet, Knight of Pyrex Cups in the Kitchen Tarot. It's a textile art quilt where she's used a whole cloth painting, and she does freehand, and then she also airbrushes and quilts and stitches. She is a social justice activist painter and fiber artist. She likes to mix current events, history, personal experience, and ideas into her art. Like I said, she does freehand airbrush. She writes on it and sews. And she's been making quilts in this series of the Kitchen Tarot since 1998. She feels that a skillet is a symbol for women's strength, that we use our wisdom and determination to make our lives, the whole world, a better place. We are all knights, women warriors for good. This quilt is about 3 eco-warriors, Rachel Carson, Annie Leonard, and Greta Thunberg. There's 15 golden triangles. If you look and pay attention, it says Save the Earth Now. She always writes a haiku in the corner of her piece, and this one says, Women, save the earth, and work for human rights too, healing and great love. You can also visit Turtle Moon Studios and look up the 2023 gallery, and you can go to the Use the Skillet Knights of the Pyrex Cups, and you can read all the different things that she has listed in the verbiage. I mean, she just, sometimes it's streams of consciousness, sometimes it's what she's thinking this day, sometimes it's projections, but each area has text embedded into it, and it's just one of these pieces that you could get lost for quite a while. Looking into it. And again, I love the imagery. We talk about is our love for fairness. The women have the third eye. And again, it's these women who are trying to work, who are eco-warriors. Okay, this sculptural basket piece was created by Annie Peters. This piece is called Basket for Your Secrets. She believes that this is ritualistic in nature, and it speaks of the secrets we carry within us, especially as women. Not just our secrets, but secrets we are asked to hold for others. Sometimes we need to find a place for them, and this basket offers that place. The magnolia leaves on the bottom represent strength, and the stones symbolize the heavy burden we need to put down when carrying secrets for a long time. The number 5 represents humanity, thus 5 stones. So this was created with vines and paper, wood, leaves, stones, and sinew. This mixed media piece was created by Beth Nash, and it's called Everything Changes. It's charcoal, gesso, neocolor, acrylic on paper. Beth, she likes to use women and figures and humans and animals to create a narrative. She works in acrylic on paper and collage works, and sometimes she uses her own painted or printed papers. She recently retired from teaching in Marietta, and so now she can devote more time to doing her work. This is a little bit more of a contemporary presentation where she's got a substrate on the very bottom and has grommets put on the pieces. I'm learning to be a little bit more open about presentation, because especially when it comes to framing pieces on paper, I know how costly it gets, and shipping it, and to frame something like this would probably cost like $700, $800, $1,000. So this is a little bit more contemporary presentation. So when I invite artists to the shows, I'm sharing their aesthetic, but I'm also sharing their presentation, and also giving my viewers an idea of what artwork should be costing, created by a talented artist in 2024. Okay, this next grouping of work was created by a new artist to this collection named Emma Anderson. She's a CIA alumni. I actually met Emma when we were both teaching at the Institute of Art, and she had a classroom next to me. So these are acrylic on paper. The first two are entitled I Am Lost, and the second is In My Head. And she feels that artwork functions as a personal expression of her repressed emotions. She creates paintings and monoprints that contain anxious, chaotic scenes. She feels that these are narratives from traumatic experiences in her life. Her goal is to spark an emotional response where she wants the viewer to consider other people's expressions and perceptions of mental illnesses. Here are some more pieces by Emma Anderson. The one on the left is entitled Making Sense, acrylic on paper. And then she went a little bit larger scale on canvas, and this is entitled Speak It. And the third piece, which is another piece on paper entitled Stretched Thin. And I love her expressionistic color, her acid colors, her, you know, the figures, and you can kind of sense the angst that she's trying to translate or transmit into her paintings, into her expressions. Okay, this next grouping of ceramics on the stands was created by Stephanie Miller Davis. Stephanie does teach at the Cleveland Institute of Art, and you'll see her work, which looks totally different from this, in my Skull and Skeleton and art shows. So these three pieces, she was working with the amphora, which is reminiscent of the female body, and the spherical form both give references to periods of antiquity in which women were revered for their fertility, wisdom, strength, and beauty. So the piece in the back is the spherical jug, and then she's got the amphora 1 on the left and the amphora 2 on the right. Okay, here's another piece by Krista Miller. You saw her frilly tulle encased piece. So this is called Aaliyah's Angels, which is an obvious kind of homage to Charlie's Angels. But so I appreciate the pop culture impact of the work, the fact that she's got these like electronic pieces parts, and she's got the acid colors and the skin tones, and yet she's able to convey the reflection of the surfaces of the purple jumpsuit. And I love that it's a larger scale, so it has great graphic impact. Okay, this is a sculpture by P.J. Halliwell. She's another returning artist. She's been in my clay shows before. And my colleague just said here, if he had seen this tooth fairy as a young child, he would have glued his teeth in to keep him from coming. This is obviously the tooth fairy. It's mixed media. It's cosplay clay. It's all about the tooth fairy and his relentless search for teeth, which prolongs his life, which is kind of crazy. And her attention to detail is crazy, and the cast shadow from the light hitting it from above. And although this isn't the right venue to show this, but the teeth, the wings, the whites of the eyes, they all glow in the dark, which I think there's a great little addition to the sculpture, and just seeing the teeth kind of oozing out of the legs is kind of crazy cool. Okay, this is a collection of painted wood blocks created by Patricia Swearingen-Hecker. She's from Indiana. She has a company called Tattoo Dreams that she started with her husband John. John's the woodworker, and Pat creates the images using the stamps, and she believes that the surfaces look like tattoos on wood, hence the company name of Tattoo Dreams. The designs are uplifting and personal, the colors are beautiful, and this is a new body of work that she does. You might be more familiar with her if you see her at the craft shows, where she does mirrors and strings of beads and boxes, but this is something just a little bit different from her. So she submitted 6 painted blocks for this exhibition. Okay, this is a piece by Gail Crum. It's entitled Tell Someone, and it's assemblage. There's a few more pieces of Gail's work, which I'll talk a little bit more when we have another grouping, but I placed this piece here and I did something a little different as far as the installation. There's a trend recently where people are painting black circles or black squares on the wall, and then they're putting their pieces on top of it as a dramatic effect. So I thought that I would try doing this with, instead of, well, I can't really paint the black on the wall, so it's black foam core, and I just feel that it helps set the piece off because it's by itself on a pedestal, but having the black background kind of offsets the drama of the piece. This next grouping of images has a little bit more of a political activist kind of lean to them. You know that I like to use this area of the gallery to give my artists the free expression to make comments on what's happening and how it affects them personally. The sculpture on the left was created by Gail Crum, and it's entitled "The Hardest Decision a Woman Has to Make Isn't Yours." And it's an assemblage, and it's got little pieces that are attached to it that talk about for our sisters. And then, of course, you've got the image with the hangers, which, as we go to the right, and we see how they are utilized in Judy Takis's piece. Judy Takis is also a CIA graduate. She was in my Big Ass Art Show last summer also. Her work, she focuses on feminist human rights issues. She believes she wants to give women a voice, a spotlight, and also fix what's wrong in the world, in the country, in Ohio. And with Roe versus Wade being overturned, she's creating more pro-choice works, and she wants to help. She's actively involved in bringing back and guaranteeing abortion rights to Ohio. So the piece on the left is Hope for Ohio, which is oil and collage on canvas. And the piece on the right is the band The Heartbeat Bills, which also is oil collage on canvas. Okay, this is Kate Morgan from Columbus, Ohio. This is a little bit different as far as the work that you're used to seeing from her, which you'll see in a few minutes in the hallway portion of the gallery. It fit thematically into the black and white area, and some of the visuals, the ephemeral, ethereal visuals kind of lent themselves to be included in this area. These are photogravures, which are actually, you create the image with a photo negative that's transferred to a metal plate, and then it's etched. So it's like a intaglio print. And me being a printmaking minor at the Institute of Art, I'm intrigued by printmaking. And what's nice about these pieces is that velvety dark black that's like, she really did a nice job on etching the plate, biting the plate, and to get the range of the values, which makes these pieces so beautiful. So the one on the left is entitled Mother Ram. Again, this is photogravure on handmade paper. And then the one on the right is entitled Icarus. Okay, this next collection of porcelain sculptures and black and white photography was created by Kim Chapman. She is also a CIA graduate. She feels that her work sheds light on dark topics, and which are some of her worst nightmares, specifically, what women endure. She's a feminist artist who uses art to amplify women's issues. She's obsessed with porcelain and how ethereal that the media is. And she uses black and white on her porcelains, and then with some of these pieces she's added, human hair. So now the clay pieces, she's talking about the medieval armor for women and why, so you've got the piece with the red hair, which is desperately seeking an Amazon fighter. And then the piece on the left is Tea for Two, which is also porcelain glaze, and that piece kind of lends itself to the photographs that are in the back, which I'll talk about real quickly, which is, it has to do with why women were sent to mental asylums and about the botched diagnosis and treatments that they endured. as we come around, we have the sculpture with the skull on the front, and that was entitled Bad Company. And then the piece with the lusters is entitled Gauntlet. This next installation of photographs was from Kimberly's collection called the 86 Reasons for Asylum Admission, and this one was called Be Patient. As I mentioned quickly before, it's just about what women endured and how they were treated if their husband couldn't handle them, and sometimes they were locked away in places, and sometimes they were drugged, sometimes they were abused. So this is a part of an installation that she had created in different gallery and museum venues. This next piece is created by Gwen Waite. It's entitled Empty, and it's found object assemblage. Gwen is from the Akron area. She shows in my women's shows, my skull shows. I feel she's one of the best assemblage found object artists in the area. She loves working with found objects because she believes that it evokes memories and nostalgia, and sometimes common or often unique responses to each viewer that looks at it, that looks at the sculpture. Everybody obviously sees something different when they see a piece of artwork. And at this point, she created this piece because it's called Empty because it kind of relates to the fact of her age and how she's at a menopausal stage where she's in some cultures and in our culture, sometimes it's not valued or respected. You're empty, you can't bear children, you're not as whole as society wants you to be. And Gwen's work does deal with feminist issues. She deals with all different kinds of inspirations and all, but usually her pieces are very thought-provoking, and she finds pieces that the found object pieces, which obviously makes it, are just so incredible in what she's able to discover. Okay, this is a little bit of a mini installation by Patty Flauto. It's called Pink Justice. It's acrylic, charcoal on canvas, painted bamboo, and in her statement, she mentions that the Gulabi gang in India has my attention, also known as the Pink Gang. These gangs of intergenerational women wear pink saris, carry pink bamboo poles, and fight injustice on the streets of India. This movement began as a rallying cry against domestic abuse. It has grown to speak out against politics and socioeconomic inequality and inequity. And so Patty does state, I do not endorse violence, but I do endorse women standing up for themselves and for other women. And so Pink Justice pays homage to women and their long-standing struggles. Okay, this next grouping of work is created by Leslie Discount-Arian. She's also a CIA graduate, and I'm going to read her statement. She said the Israel-Hamas war has created political polarizations around the world, increased threats of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. The universe is in danger. In using the earth elements of charcoal, graphite, water, and chalk, I summon the Golem to create these drawings as a prayer and a warning. According to Kabbalah, the code of Jewish mysticism, a golem is created from raw energy and earth elements like dust and clay. It was created to be a brute force protector to warn and rescue an imperiled community. The golem, in its great power, can be compassionate and empathetic, representing consciousness and freedom, and it can be a mindless force representing frightening evil. It hovers over both realms. So these are mixed media, gesso, charcoal, graphite pieces on paper, and it's the Golem series. And so from left to right is Golem Series 4, Golem Series 3, Golem Series 2, we love red dots, and Golem Series 1. Okay, this next artist, Jane Alexander, is from Pennsylvania. She's new to the collection. She's known for her painting of portraits and figures. I actually met her last fall at the Ashtabula Art Center. She had her piece accepted into the Tikkanen Arts Prize. And when I read her artist statement, I discovered she was retired from the Air Force. So she's self-taught. She likes to include quirky, informal poses when she creates her paintings because she believes it captures the essence of the subject. And she likes to paint the models in an unguarded moment. And she feels that it conveys emotion and a way to connect with the viewer because she wants the viewer to feel it's a person they would like to know, someone they would like to friend. So the first painting is the Dreaming of Sugar Plums, acrylic on canvas. We've got the red glasses. In the center is the Secret Garden. And I just wanted you to take a minute and just look at some of the details and how she did the texture that's on the lace and then how it's integrated into the foreground, background, and just gives a beautiful, ethereal, ephemeral effect to the painting. And then the piece on the far right is called Golden Earring. And then on the pedestal, we have another piece by Gail Trunick called Bridge Between Us. And again, what makes her work a little different with the assemblage artist is that she creates ceramic sculpture to go with the pieces parts that she finds. So she can control the scale, she can control things. But when you're creating clay to integrate sometimes with metal, she has to incorporate and consider the fact that the clay is going to shrink when it gets fired and warp and things like that. So it's out, for me it's a little bit more of a challenge integrating what she creates with what she finds, and then they just create these incredible sculptures. Okay, these next two drawings were created by Beth Nash. The first one is called Pepe Rules the Roost, and it's charcoal, gesso, and acrylic media. And the next one is called Love and Kindness. Like I said, she was teaching painting and drawing in Marietta, and now she's able to work on her work full time. She participates in that Friday drawing group called the Pretentious Artists, where people from all over the country now, because of the pandemic, they have a model that they set up at Artful in Cleveland Heights, and they broadcast the different poses, and then at the end of the night the different artists will share with you the pieces that they've created. So now what Beth has been doing is she's been doing things with the computer programs with I think Procreate and again I don't want to say the wrong names of the software, but she's able to use these color and paint programs which are stunning. Okay, we have a sculptural basket form created by Annie Peters, and it's called Make a Wish. And it includes it's vine, wood, and a hagstone amulet. The adder stone, also known as a hagstone, has been considered to have spiritual properties throughout history. These stones are formed when water seeps deep into a rock or mineral and erodes it, creating holes. To find one of these stones is considered lucky, and it can be used to make wishes. So then we go to the wall, and we've got some pieces of Gail Crumb's. Gail Crumb is self-taught, and she took her first art class when she was 40 years old, and she's inspired by art forms of collage and assemblage. She likes to collect unwanted, discarded objects, and she transforms them, repurposes them so that they create their own new story. She believes in the reflection of pertinent issues of women, our stories, and of this time and place. So the piece on the left is entitled "Vote Them Out," and it's mixed media, and it's on it's inset into like a hinged box. And then when you come to the other side, it's like that's the other edge of the box, and that one is entitled "How to Be a Girl," and again, it's mixed media. Now in the middle is a piece by Gwen Waite. You should be very familiar with her work. I show her as often as I can. Again, she's one of the best assemblage artists in this area. This is called Women's Work, and it's found object assemblage. And I finally found out what the significance of the ice picks are. But so in this piece, which is called Women's Work, she's included an ironing board, a rug beater, a dustpan, and this is all kind of and the change where we are yoked to things that are considered women's work, menial work. And she puts ice picks around her pieces because it shows hostility and disdain to such labels, which I never knew before. And then again, look at that gift of those shadows. That's just, oh, I love it. And just her eye for the details and how she's able to put sometimes some totally unrelated objects and makes them into something that creates a cohesive image and conveys symbolism and a narrative. Okay, this two pieces of ceramic tile were created by Chesterland artist Jenny Mendez. And again, this is something a little different for her from what I've seen, and I've been showing her work for years. She honors me, and it's my privilege to show her work because she really doesn't show it too much in this area. She shows all over the country. But these are untitled, tile 1 and tile 2. But again, this is one of those examples of if you could come in and see the subtlety and the nuances of the limited color palette, and it's just the quality of the line and the painterly effects that she's able to get with the underglazes, and then the simple presentation of the wood frame that her husband, Mark, created. Okay, as we start the tour of the hallway area of the gallery, this is a pastel on paper piece by Tricia Common called Colorful Repose. And you're going to see the next few pieces of Jamie Zentz. Sorry, she only had one piece available for sale. One of my colleagues saw this when the show wasn't even up and said, I want this. So Jamie, like I said, is a graduate of the Institute of Art. These are pencil and oil on birch. The piece on the left is Chasing Rain 1. The piece on the right is Chasing Rain 2. And then the third piece is Guardian. And what's interesting about Jamie's work, first of all, she's an incredible draftsman, how she captures the face and the details of the nose and the lips and the hands. And she kind of creates like a surreal kind of atmosphere. And what she does is she says that the pieces of wood speak to her and tells her where the composition is going to be placed. And then she goes in and she brings up like parts of the inspiration of the wood grain to get this very ethereal, ephemeral, kind of surrealistic, dreamy background to then show you the contrast between the surface of that bird figure and the feathers against the opulence of the folds in the fabrics. Okay, this next grouping, a wall piece and a necklace and jewelry, was created by Janet O'Rourke. She's from Oregon. She and her husband Jay, who is a woodworker, they've been together 45 years and they've been creating artwork. And her newest work she's entitled Fragments of Fairy Tales. And her work is reminiscent of Victorian revival, which is mixed with modern themes. The piece on the left is called Rose Fairy, and it's carved three-dimensional birch wood. There's pigment, acrylic, pencil. She uses 10 to 20 layers of lacquer, and she's incorporating Swarovski rhinestones into the pieces. So we have the Rose Fairy on the left, and then on the right is the Joy necklace and the Blossom earrings. And with the necklace and earrings, there's oxidized sterling silver, there's hand-dyed silk, and there's also pearls. I want to also kind of share with you that their work is green when they salvage logs that are fallen trees after storms or tree trimmers. I love how detailed their illustrations are, the fanciful imagery, and like I said, with all the different mixed media that she creates. And this is an artist that I've known for decades because we used to carry her work at American Crafts. So it's fun for me to stay in contact with artists that I've known for decades, and it's an honor that they entrust me with their work and send me work from all over the country to be part of the women's exhibition, which this year's it's the 17th incarnation. It's the only show that has been going on nonstop. The pandemic in 2020 couldn't stop us. It wasn't open as long, but this show has always been up and able to occur every year in March. Okay, this next pairing of work was created by Kate Morgan. Her work is inspired by folklore, mythology, and the human form. She likes to include figures and subjects to evoke a mysterious familiarity and haunting interpretation of beauty. She works thematically. She incorporates love of the spirit as well as the strength of the feminine. She wants the work to begin a dialogue, not a confrontation. So the piece on the left is called Fayette, and it's mixed media collage on birch panel. And this one on the right is The Fool, which was actually created as a tarot card. And again, when I read her statement, I learned that she likes to reference different phases of art, and she's inspired by Byzantine art, hence why there's gold leaf halos around the figures. And she loves to use layers. She uses vintage papers, vintage maps, and with the gold leaf, and how she places her compositions to create a narrative, a story. And a lot of these artists I choose because they are creating a story. They're not just creating pretty things. So it's not just the aesthetic to me, it's also, their inspiration and what compels them to create their art. Next is a grouping by Lisa Kenyon. The first piece is a little bit more indicative of the work you're used to seeing from her. This is actually the wax mold for a piece that she will be casting in bronze, and it's entitled The Voice in the Stream. She's interested in Neolithic and Bronze Age sculptures. She finds that the regard that these cultures have for nature and their open attitude towards the divine femininity is very insightful. She's interested in and practices yoga. And again, some of these pieces are about personal interpretation of cosmology that's based on the interconnectedness we have with each other. And then the pieces that are on the wall, these are watercolor on paper because she's trying to do some more spontaneous pieces because she's not always able to cast bronze. And Lisa is one of the few women artists in this area that works with a foundry and can cast her pieces. So these are Falling Water 1, Falling Water 2, and Falling Water 3. And on Falling Water 2, she actually has some text and some prose that she has added to the surface of her piece. Okay, then the final piece on this wall is Idaho artist Anya Khan, and it's entitled Journey to the Blue Enchanted Garden. It's gouache, oil pastel, colored pencil, gold ink on paper. Anya has been showing me for years. This is another artist that I was introduced to on Facebook. We've become friends. I've been with her through all the moves. I think she's moved 3 or 4 times since I've been dealing with her. But she's a painter, she's a photographer, she's a curator, she's an author, she's written books, and she has also created the Silver Era Tarot cards and the book that accompanies it. She likes to work with subjects with symbols and elements from nature, and she gets her inspiration from her tumultuous childhood and her near-death experiences due to chronic illnesses. Before she was diagnosed, there were so many things that impaired her art making. And it really impeded what she was doing. So, and her work is rooted in symbolism. It touches on subjects such as vulnerability, loss, challenges, beauty, wisdom, voices we have inside. And she is also a regular exhibitor in my ever-popular biennial Skull and Skeleton and Art Show. Okay, this next grouping of pieces are these two, was created by Laurel Herbold. Laurel was chosen to be the poster girl for this year's show, and in a minute you'll see some of her other pieces. She works with all kinds of mediums, different techniques. She does restoration. She's a muralist. She does custom painting. She believes her work is strong, abstract, and has a surreal quality to her work. She's inspired by the unparalleled design and elements of nature. She has done decorative restoration on churches. She just recently worked on the restoration of the chandelier at Stan Hewitt Hall in Akron. You may have seen her, some of her murals. She has done murals for Barrio Tacos and Goldhorn Brewery. She has a studio showroom at the 78th Street Studios on the first floor, and she's been there for 13 years. And for those of you who don't know, who are living in a vacuum, every third Friday is Third Friday at 78th Street Studios, which is like 78th Street, West 78th and Lake Avenue, right on the edge of Cleveland and Lakewood. It's 4 floors of galleries, of shops, of pop-up shops, of some restaurants serve refreshments and food. So it's a great experience, and what's great is that once you're inside, you can be there for hours. And I know this is going to come as a shock to you, but when I go, it usually takes me 4 or 5 hours because I pretty much know everybody. And I find sometimes if I just stand still, people come to me, and I'm able to talk to as many people as I possibly can. So then I put the piece of Annie Peters with it because the organic nature of the circular piece. It's the color sense that's coming up. You know, the organicness of the woven piece and the piece of wood that's integrated into it. And this piece is called Portal, and it's vine and wood. Okay, and then the last piece on this part of the wall is another stunning piece by Beth Nilges-Nahampkin. Like I said, she's a CIA graduate. This is called Seashore Mandala, and it's watercolor and paper. And this is one of those, what's not to like about this piece, because she's got, you know, all of my favorite things. The Honu turtles, and Honu is Hawaiian for turtle. She's got the tropical fish. She's got the ocean. She's got the seahorse in the middle. And okay, I'm going to share this thing with you. I always thought seahorses were fake, not like sea monkeys that you would buy from a catalog. It wasn't until I went to the old aquarium on East 71st Street, kind of near the Shoreway, that I saw my first seahorse. And it was one of those moments when my parents took me, and I'm like, oh, they're real, because I really never thought they were. So seahorses have a very special kind of trigger to my memories. Okay, this next grouping of work, it's actually 2 different media by the same artist. Her name is Sarah Warman Lane. She's from Washington State. She actually grew up here, and actually her dad, Ralph Warman, was one of my advisors at the Institute of Art when I was a printmaking minor. So her dad was known for his lithography. So the art and the quality of the work and the talent runs deep in this family. So these are 3 acrylic in Altoid tins. We've got Kenya on the left, Maud in the center, and Elsa on the right. And what's interesting about these, you know, I saw her work. She's also participates in the Pretentious Artists on Friday nights, and she uses the one side of the Altoid tin as her palette, and the other side is the portrait. And she just creates these beautiful little intimate portraits that I just really love, and I appreciate that she sends her lovelies to me all from across the country. And then she just recently started showing that she does things in fiber and wool. So this is called Ophelia's Ecstasy. I have this love of the Ophelia paintings and the famous Ophelia painting, and I can't remember the artist's name. Sorry, my art history is eluding me right now. But this is wool and cotton and glass beads, and just what she was able to create with the surfaces and the figure, and the fact that this is the iconic image of Ophelia floating in the water with the with the flowers above her, which is obviously taken from Shakespeare. Okay, here's a whole wall of Laura Herbold's work. Again, these are acrylic on canvas, and I just love the organic pieces and the inspiration of nature and her iconography and symbolism and her humor and the fancifulness of the pieces, and the fact that she's so ingrained and with water and the refreshing and the renewing qualities of that. So the piece on the left is entitled Kissing Moon. Then we have these 3 pieces that she sold to a collector. Thank you for the red dots. And the left one is entitled Her. The center one is Do We or Don't We? and the third one is entitled Him. And I just love all the details and all the quirkiness and the color palette, and they're just really fun. And then the piece on the far right is Welcome to My World, which is the piece that I chose to become the branding for the exhibition when I chose Laurel to be this year's artist. Okay, these next two pieces is another artist that's new to the collection, Kelly Hensing. She's actually from the Cincinnati metropolitan area. I met her at the Winter Fair over a year ago. Then I saw her again at Winter Fair this year. I saw her at the Screw Factory, and I said, "You've got to give me work for the show." And I just really love the photorealism, the symbolism that she incorporates into her work. And these are oil on wood. And her artist statement, she says, she's inspired by fantasy figures, mysterious places, and strange nature. My visual language combines these subjects with symbolism to create unique visual stories. My art is often an expression of opposing forces in life, light and dark, beauty and decay, wisdom and mystery. While some of my pieces contain a narrative puzzle to be solved, others are left for the viewers to create meaning for their own interpretations. So the piece on the left, Obscura, her statement here, she says it's psychoanalyzing an individual subconscious inspired by the Rorschach test. And when you look at this piece, oh my God, you've got the eyes, the bigger eyes, which go, okay, they look like eyes, and then you realize that then there's eyes of these different creatures, and then you've got these like grubby, organic creatures, and then if you keep looking, the details, and then the sharp teeth, and then in the back it kind of looks like fireflies. So I just love the surrealism of the pieces that she's able to integrate into this, and it's kind of fun to do a round format. But this is one of those pieces that the longer you look into it, it kind of vexes you and kind of hypnotizes you because there's so much to look at. And then the piece next to it, this is also Kelly Hensing, and this is Ophelia, and this is the second piece with Ophelia as the as the subject matter. And this one, she believes that Ophelia holds layers of feminine symbolism along with the language of flowers, and obviously it was inspired by Shakespeare. And again, I just love the illustrative quality of her work, and I hope that she continues to give me work because I'll show it if she'll allow me. This next piece was created by Carrie Gortz. It's entitled Missing, and it's spray paint, acrylic, embroidery floss on printed cotton. Carrie has a studio on the 78th Street Studios on the second floor where she lives with her two cats. She's fascinated by the role art plays in culture that have no written language. She believes that art records their history and that there's symbolism found on everyday objects. I think you can see the strong influence of both Native American and Aboriginal legends in her work. And so, she used commercial fabrics, but then she painted and embroidered over the top of the pieces. And I encourage you to go see her studio because she does soft sculptures. She also does paintings and acrylic. So she is a multimedia, mixed media artist. And then this last grouping in the hallway is work created by Jenny Mendez, and she's recently has started doing the watercolors on paper, and left to right is Golden Child, Four Directions of the Soul, and Comet. And she likes to work within a human-animal narrative. She says that she creates a structure of overlaid painted patterns of emotional experience, and then sensory-based memories and other discoveries. And I love the fact of how simple these paintings are that she puts in the frames that her husband Mark makes for her. But it's just a very quiet, illustrative look to the pieces, and it's just interesting that she's one of those artists that can cross over to create paintings on paper, and then she also creates her signature clay pieces, and she believes that you know, clay has been her primary material, and the illustrative imagery that she has on the pieces. So on the pieces on the pedestal, from left to right, we have plate number 2. We've got a green Eunomia in the back, which is a ceremonial cup. We have a blue Eunomia. There's a plate, and then there's the plate with the butterfly that's on the back right. Okay, the last piece of the exhibition is a piece by Crystal Miller. It's called Opulence, and it's mixed media on canvas, and it's the spray foam insulation that she spray painted. She's got all the glitter, she's got all the iridescent colors. I mean, this is my color palette. I'm all over this piece, and again, what's fun is that, you know, she's painted it with all the different colors, and then the cast shadows that it creates on the wall is just something a little bit more fun. And then the fact that it's a functional item in that it's a mirror. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you've had some fun listening to my stories as I share the artist's inspiration, as I talk about the media. So I hope you've enjoyed the journey, and like I said, support the local artists every day, please and thank you.